Hi people, it's Archivist here with another vlog video, and today I would like to talk about 1080p versus 60 frames per second. I've been playing two games recently. There's Titanfall for the PC and Infamous Second Son for the PlayStation 4. As any PC gamer will know, one of the greatest advantages is being able to tweak the graphics. So what you can do is you can say remove some lighting effects and you'll get some extra frames in return. And you can do this to achieve 60 frames per second, which is what I consider the holy grail of frame rates. Some people even can get 120 frames. This depends on your monitor. It doesn't make sense to have 120 frames if you don't have a 120Hz monitor. But on the PlayStation 4, a powerhouse, and Infamous Second Son is an amazing game, don't get me wrong, from a graphical standpoint. But there were certain times that I wish I could reduce the graphics in order to get 60 frames, especially as the game sometimes even drops below 30. I think what we may be doing is pressurizing developers to hit that 1080p mark, even if it means sacrificing almost everything else in the process. And the reason I say it is there's been lots of controversy around resolutions. When people compare the graphical quality, one of the first things they've been going to recently for next gen is the 1080p/720p thing. Whenever someone's saying the PlayStation 4 runs this game better than the Xbox One, they will point towards the resolution. And they'll say, oh, we're getting 1080p games, we're getting 1080p games. But really the effect of 1080p isn't nearly as important as people like to think it is. What's more is that some games benefit far more from a high resolution than others. MMOs, for example, where there is a lot of text on screen, if you have 720p over 1080p, it's very noticeable. Say Diablo, for example, when lots of items are falling on the floor, if you have a low resolution, they'll have to make the text bigger to compensate, and therefore more of the screen is covered in text and it's a less immersive experience overall. If we take another game, for example, let's say Titanfall, that's a game that I actually played at 720p for a long time without realising I was playing it to 720p, because there isn't a lot of text on it and it runs perfectly well at that lower HD resolution. And it really isn't necessary to push up to 1080p unless you really want to have high clarity. In fact, Respawn Entertainment, the guys behind Titanfall, had a goal of hitting 60 frames per second no matter what on the Xbox One, and I have total respect for them doing that. Especially when you take into account the impact frame rate can have on your performance in Titanfall. When I upped some of the graphical stuff almost too much and pushed my frame rate down to 30, I definitely noticed I was getting less kills and basically just not doing as well in a match. So 60 frames per second on the Xbox One version of the game was a very smart move in my opinion. So in certain instances I think 1080p is completely necessary or simply complementary. Infamous Second Son, I think Sucker Punch made a wise decision putting it in 1080p, even if it meant some very rare frame rate drops. And the reason for this are the particle effects. They simply would not have been at that high quality if it wasn't for the resolution. Other games though, like Titanfall, I think Respawn made the smart decision there, putting it at 60 frames per second and sacrificing the resolution a bit. So to conclude my thoughts on this topic, I would say that 1080p is of course a great thing for any game to have, especially in the instance of Second Son, where particle effects play a big part in the overall visual package. But then again, I think developers do need to be responsible with regards to frame rate. As always people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.